trying to hold down the fort in a camper, 21-foot. With Veterans Day coming, and
What's that?
a lot of you too, when I was driving home, because Veterans Day is coming up, and then, you're displaying your veterans dish. Like nurses.
All right. I've got 7 o'clock, so if we're ready in the back, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Okay. I'm calling to order the November 7th, 2024 College Township Council Meeting. Calling it to order. Before we get into the agenda, I'm going to ask everyone who can stand to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we get into the agenda, I just want to announce that this council met in executive session briefly at the conclusion of our last council meeting on October 17th to discuss a matter that is permitted to be discussed by Pennsylvania law in executive session, happened to be a personnel matter. All right, on to the agenda. First item tonight is public open discussion. It's an opportunity for anyone here in the audience who would like to approach the podium and present anything to council here that isn't already on tonight's agenda. So anybody have anything to say on anything that's not on the agenda?
Somebody raised his hand.
Was that a yes or a no?
No.
Well, what's the topic? I can tell you.
It's about the, what's it called? The Nittany Manor development.
Okay.
So it is on the agenda.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. So that is a potential action item, so we'll have an opportunity for public comment before this body takes any action. All right, anybody else? Okay, anybody on council? Anything you want to offer up? Staff? No? Okay. That takes us to new agenda items. Anybody here, to my right or to my left? Want to offer anything up for consideration to add to the agenda? Anybody in the audience? So it'd be an opportunity to ask council to consider anything that's not already on tonight's agenda.
Oh, my.
No? All right, I see we have a bunch of people online, so same thing applies to online. Anything that's not on tonight's agenda you'd like to?
Is that a thumbs up?
That's a thumbs up.
From College Township? That's from College Township.
Oh, it's us, okay. All right, that's a hint. That's a hint. All right, that'll move us on to special presentation. Tonight we have one, SP1, Center County Economic Development Plan. Again, this is an information item only, and I see we have Greg here tonight to, so if you just introduce yourself for CNET.
Certainly. Well, good evening, and my name's Greg Scott. I'm the president and CEO of the Chamber of Business and Industry of Center County. We are the Chamber of the County, the voice of business. We are also the designated economic development organization for the county as well. Very grateful to be here tonight to talk about something we've been working on at the Chamber, but within the community, which is really important over the last more than a year to develop a economic development strategy for the county and beyond the county, really a regional plan that will drive our economy forward with some specific actions over the next 5 to 10 years. So very grateful to be here. I think I have been going around and sharing this plan broadly, and have met with several other municipalities over the last month and a half, asking for support. And that support is really to acknowledge that this plan is important to our county. It's important to our future, and we're looking for our governmental bodies to acknowledge that and support it in whichever way you feel you can. And particularly, not only tonight, if you can support it through a resolution of support, but also as we execute the plan, pledging to work with us, work with the community, which, however you can, to help execute this plan as we move forward. So with that, Mike, you can go to the next slide. So why did we do this? And this is something, I've been in the job now for 3 years, and I recognized very early on that we had a lot of different organizations in the county that are doing economic development. But in a bit of a silo. And I think I really felt strongly that we had an opportunity to work together and coordinate and develop a shared common vision for us to move forward, so that all of these organizations and entities that are doing economic development are rowing the boat in the same direction towards one common vision. And so we had a very deliberate process, and I'll go into that in a minute. Another aspect to this, with any strategic plan, is to get very clear about what our goals and actions will be as we move forward. And I think this plan does that. You've all had an opportunity to take a look at it. It is broad, it is big, it's meaty, it captures really the collective input of our community about where we need to focus and where we need to go. And my hope was that through a very community-focused, collaborative effort in putting the plan together, that on the backside, where we are now, the execution phase, that we'll continue to have a lot of energy and support as we execute the plan. Go ahead, Mike. So how did we do that? We engaged over 150 contributors in this plan. We had focus groups, we had individual interviews, we met one-on-one with businesses, governmental entities, nonprofits. We brought in partner organizations, such as organizations like College Township Industrial Development Authority, CEDACOG, Focus Central PA, and even contributors from outside of our county, such as the Blair County Economic Development Corporation, and bringing them into our discussions and input, knowing that for us to ultimately be successful, we've got to work with our neighbors outside of our borders. Go ahead to the next slide, Mike. So when we brought that group together, and over a period of months, what did we hear? They wanted this plan to be collaborative, accountable, meaning that it will get what we were focused on results, and we'll hold ourselves accountable for making it happen over a period of time, and sustainable, meaning it's not just 1 year, but it's a 5 to 10 year plan, one that we can focus and work us on. Go ahead, Mike. And our hope was, and our belief and our goals were that the plan will be economically resilient. And what we meant by that was we really want to work to diversify our economy. Right now, we are predominantly eds, meds, and feds, and we wanted to look to diversify that, create jobs, create businesses coming in that would support that diversification and help our community become more resilient. We really felt that it was important, or we heard that it was really important that we grow local business. It's the heartbeat of a community, and we felt like we could really support our businesses. And then we want to be competitive. We want to be competing with other communities across Pennsylvania, but also outside of the borders of Pennsylvania. So when we put this plan together and we collected data from all different sources, there were a number of different ideas that were put on the table, and they really boiled down to 4 different focus areas. Business retention. You can go ahead to the next slide. Yes, I did want to mention this. When we put these goals together in our focus, we wanted to make sure we were looking through the lens that we were economically and environmentally sustainable in everything we do, in all of our goals, and that we were looking at it through the lens of diversity and inclusion of all businesses and all business types, make this a really inclusive community. Go ahead, Mike. So as I mentioned, we boiled this down to 4 focus areas. The first was looking internally, looking at our county and what we have currently. So business retention and expansion, focusing on the businesses that are here, and how do we help them grow and be sustainable in the long run. The second area was targeted emerging industries. This was looking externally, like how do we get very specific and very focused on the types of companies we want to grow here and we want to attract into our area. And I'll go into more detail about that. The third was workforce and education, a key component of any economic development plan or strategy. And then our fourth area was the built and natural environment, our infrastructure, our outdoor rec, our tourism, our critical aspect of housing or lack thereof. So you can go ahead to the next slide, Mike. So let me dive a little bit deeper into, just really from a summary level, each of these 4 areas. Go ahead to the next slide. Actually, you can scan through those quickly. Okay, so business retention and expansion, a couple different areas. We felt that we had an opportunity to come together as a community and create a concierge service. So when businesses are starting, or entrepreneurs are starting their business, they had basically a one-stop shop, or whatever way they engaged our community, whether it was through the chamber, whether it was through College Township Industrial Development Authority, whether it was through the Penn State Innovation Hub or the Small Business Development Center. That group got together and is creating a hub where wherever you enter, that group can direct them to the resources they may need. We want to identify and work with high-growth companies. These are the companies that have the greatest potential to add jobs to it. They may not be the biggest companies in our community, but they have the greatest potential. So we want to know who they are, and we want to work closely with them to help them be successful and continue to grow. And then we were fortunate, timing-wise, that we put this plan together when the state put their economic development strategy together. And we worked closely with them. We engaged with Harrisburg, with DCED, the governor's office, to make sure that our plan was in alignment. And what I feel is really beneficial to us, we're the first region out of the gate to do that, and we've heard that from multiple sources. And that gives us, I think, a leg up to compete for dollars that are going to be coming from Harrisburg. So we want to make sure we leverage that. Go ahead, Mike. So our second area, I mentioned targeted emerging industries. So the industry that we found going through this process that has the greatest opportunity for us, it's already a successful industry right now, is the sensor technology industry. There's 1,700 employees already working in this in our region. We have an opportunity, and you can see on the slides there's sensor technologies encompasses a lot of different things, but our strength in this area from the companies that are here, the workforce that's been developed over time, and also the research and also the education that's coming out of the university is strong in this area. So all of these things combined led us to the belief that this is an industry that has great potential for us, and we're going to work hard to develop an industry cluster to really focus on that. And then refining our brand. What are we known for in Center County? So how do we do that? And that's going to be one of the focus areas of this particular item. Go ahead, Mike. I mentioned workforce and education. A couple different areas in this. One is, how do we work with our educational providers at all levels to identify career pathways, educate students on what those pathways are, beyond just, hey, I'm going to go to a 4-year college and get a college education. There are many, many different career pathways, and we want to make sure our students are knowing what they are. Talent attraction. What we heard and became an important part of this is attracting talent into our area, particularly at all levels. And that's a complicated piece, but how do we get them to come? How do we get the right talent to want to move here and work for the companies that are here? And then understanding our workforce needs. That is working with our companies, our businesses, to really understand what their needs are and develop programs to develop our workforce to meet those needs. Go ahead, Mike. And then the last area I mentioned, the built and natural environment. Tourism and outdoor economy is absolutely a strong piece of our local economy here. We don't want to, it absolutely has to be a part of this plan. We've got a great destination marketing organization in HVAB. They already do this. They're sharpening their pencils. Their board and that organization is really focused on this. They'll own that part of the plan, keep driving that forward. We've mentioned, and we've all discussed housing needs, attainable and affordable housing, and how do we solve that? It's not just a local issue. It's it's a statewide issue. It's a national issue, and so it's an important part of this plan. It's important to workforce. It's important to tourism. It's important to all aspects of the economic development sphere. Focusing on our downtowns and main streets, and that's not just downtown State College. That's Phillipsburg. That's Millheim, Pine Grove Mills, Bellefonte. And leveraging those opportunities for us to go after state funding. We recognize that, our downtowns are, a cultural aspect, a heartbeat of our communities, and leaning into it. There's already a lot of work being done in that area, and I think we have an opportunity to really focus on that. And then lastly, our site readiness and infrastructure needs. This is an opportunity to take a look at where are the potential opportunities to focus on site development. I think College Township is poised in many ways to leverage this aspect. There is a tremendous amount of state funding that's been provided through the most recent budget approval from the state, $500 million into a program called PA Sites, which we want to be positioning ourselves to get a piece of that pie, so we can develop areas and get money in here to help do those types of projects. The airport has come up in every conversation, just like housing. And not only is the airport and the area around the airport a development opportunity, but there is also an opportunity for us to strengthen our State College Area Regional Airport, and probably even more specifically, how do we attract and retain air service going in and out of the University Park Airport? So we're going to be focusing really heavily on that to see what we can do to make State College more attractive as a place for airlines to settle and add flights for our business travelers, our residents, and our tourism aspect. Go ahead, Mike. So it's just a summary of our final strategies and goals in the plan. If you've had a chance to review it, in addition to these 4 focus areas, we have 13 specific goals and 34 action items. You can go to the next slide. So we're in a process now of really distilling down 13 goals and 34 action items can't all be worked on at the same time. So we're trying to really determine what the most important items are to work on first, or items that might lead to other successes or other action items in the plan, and who's responsible for those. I normally say at the beginning of this is not a CBICC plan. This is a Center County plan. It's very intentional. I speak about that all the time. It's not owned or operated by CBICC, and I think that's absolutely critical for our success. So we're working hard to find what are those partners and those organizations that can grab a hold of a goal, grab a hold of an action item, and take responsibility for it and keep it moving forward. And then down in the left-hand bottom corner, we have an Economic Development Council, which is about 50 members now, and it's a group of stakeholders, influencers, nonprofits, governmental entities. We've got a great representation across the board of the county. That group was there with us as we were developing this, added a lot of input, direction as we were developing the plan. But going forward, that's the group that's really going to kind of check in and hold the plan accountable, hold our community accountable for getting results. And that's ultimately what we want to see coming out of this plan. Go ahead, Mike. So I've been going around, Todd and I have been going around talking about the plan. We've had a number of meetings and presentations, and we're looking to garner the support of the community. And through that, through letters of support from Dr. Bendaputi and private organizations, our regional economic development partners supporting the plan, what that does is it just gives a level of foundational support that gives this plan the weight that I think it deserves to help move it forward. And so that's why I've been coming to council meetings like this to talk about the plan and seek your support. Go to the next slide. So we developed a new website for this. It's called centercountyforward.com. I know Adam shared that website with you. That site, that's where the plan sits, but it also is going to be where we start to report out what the wins are out of this plan. How are we making progress? So over time, we will continue to track progress, and we'll put it on this website. So the community will be able to see, and we'll be able to really see how we're doing and how we're moving forward, the impact that we are having. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have. And again, I just appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you, Adam, for coordinating that.
Okay, before we open up the council, Adam, you have more than a normal relationship here with the chamber. Anything you want to add?
No, I think it's really as important. I'm glad Greg touched on the fact that this is really not only and exclusively a CBICC plan. That this is a plan that intentionally and purposefully set out to capture input from around the county and from around various movers and shakers, if you like, or other industries that are represented not just here in the center region. And I think that is one of the most important aspects of this plan. It really is a county-oriented plan. And I think it's just very important, considering on occasion some of the criticisms that we've dealt with. I do think that as the county economic development entity, the CBICC does serve that role for the county, and I think that this plan definitely advances that. So I'm really pleased with it. To Greg and the rest of the team at the chamber, I think they've done a great job working with our consultants and as well with the Economic Development Council, and I think we have a really good product.
All right. And I should, full disclosure, Adam's relationship is not that it's abnormal, but Adam serves on the board.
Right.
So, thought I should make that clear. Susan, comments, questions?
Well, first, I'd like to thank you for making the presentation again. I mentioned when we started the meeting that I think this is the third or fourth time I've heard it. And tonight was the first time I really heard you say that this is a county plan, not the property of the CBICC, because one of the questions I had when I was looking through the detailed plan was who's project managing this?
Right.
Who's coordinating? This is ambitious, it's exciting, and I'm a council liaison to the CTIDA, so I've heard Carrie reporting out on the work that she's been doing, networking with other economic development partners, so I can see where the pieces are coming together, and I think that's really important. I do talk to people who are interested in developing businesses in the township and giving them guidance on where is that one-stop shop where they can go. Right now, that one-stop shop is the IDA and Kerry, and that's been great, but building that out and making that more inclusive I think it's very exciting. And I think a lot of what I read in here touches or dovetails nicely with the really important work that we've been doing and will be doing over the next few months in terms of the attainable housing ordinance
Absolutely.
amendments that we're working on, and also the Dale Summit area. The rezoning up there, that seems like a wonderful opportunity to learn more. So I think with that in mind, is there anything specifically that you would point out to me as a council member? I asked Deb to send over a hard copy today, and she said they don't have them. That's okay. I usually do paper copies as a resource. People used to me bringing piles of things. But, in terms of my role here on council and my particular interest in zoning and planning, I'm a healthcare provider, so I'm very interested in the public health impacts of development. Is there anything you would call out in that plan that would be helpful to me?
Well, I think it's so broad and so
exactly.
inclusive. But in terms of your role as council member on College Township, I really think the plan speaks to and it talks about the development within College Township as a great opportunity for our county. The Dale Summit area you mentioned, with the casino coming in, the opportunities there, and what that's going to create beyond just the casino. And then Shiloh Road, the work that's going on there to create some additional housing opportunities for us are great. I mean, I think that's we specifically look at that when we're thinking about the plan and those development opportunities. It's that area, and it's the airport area we think are prime locations to develop and grow. We have done a couple things over the past couple years where we have worked with the state to transfer land from Rockview,
Right.
pulled it off of state rolls and developed it or helped developers secure that land and develop it, particularly down in the Benner Pike area where the new Giant is. And we're looking for opportunities and having conversations now with the governor's office and the Bureau of Prisons about opportunities to do that again. And we see it on this side of the Rockview property. So there's opportunities there that could be even we lean in even further for that.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I had one last question. It was about the Rockview
Yeah.
work that you're doing, so that was very helpful.
So that's that. And I'll mention one other thing. You know, our workforce in education, as we think about, you know, in particular, we're on the cusp of a casino that's going to bring 350 to 400 employees, new jobs to this area. Working with the casino and the leadership there, how that's going to happen, how that's going to, you know, in doing that. So I think as an organization, as a township, as a county, we need to be thoughtfully working to help understand what the needs are, help that particular employer be successful, but also be mindful of what impact does that have on the rest of our county as well,
Well, and
from
I
other
think-
employers.
Yeah, and I think looking at the potential salaries of workers in the region and the lack of housing, I know many of the people I work with at the health system commute in from outside the county, but I was surprised to see that 65% of county workers are coming in from outside the community.
Yeah,
They're
it's
commuting.
shocking. Yeah,
And
16 different
especially when
counties.
we don't have great commuting infrastructure.
Right.
We don't have great public transportation. So anyway, I thought the plan was very helpful. I really appreciate it, and I'll be using it.
Right.
Rich?
Great comments. I have nothing to add. I appreciate, again, the multiple presentations. The more we get it out, the more hopefully people get involved with it and everything, and I appreciate your leadership on that. So thank you.
Yeah.
You know, I'll make one comment on, you know, hearing this 2 or 3 or 4 times. The other thing I'm looking for, not only in addition to like a formal show of support, but the more you individually can talk about it and promote the plan and use your circle of influence to spread this out, get the word out, I think it'll just strengthen what we do. So appreciate that comment, Rich.
Greg may be overestimating our circle of influence. We'll give it our best try.
You all have influence.
No, thanks. Again, two questions. First of all, I agree with everything that Susan and Rich said, so I won't repeat it. You've been to a couple other municipalities or entities. Any common themes you're getting as feedback that you would be relevant to share with us so far?
Yeah, the number one piece of feedback is housing. You know, one, very pleased that it's in the plan, it's called out. The plan doesn't offer solutions to what it is, but it says we have to focus on that to be able to grow and grow in a smart way. So, and there's already efforts underway, but I think we need to continue to push on that as a community and hold ourselves accountable for figuring that. That is like number one. That's come from every other municipality that we met with. It was kind of like the number one thing that they took away from this.
And I'm sorry
I don't
to
think there's
interrupt.
anything-
I'm sorry to, but you mean specifically workforce housing?
Workforce housing, yeah.
that's
Right.
that's
That's right.
priced so
Right.
that people who are working.
Attainable and affordable housing, yes, yes. So, you know, the airport, it comes up in every conversation as well. I mean, I know that's, I say that over and over again, but I think that's, those are the main things that I've heard from every municipality I've been to. Those are the core issues.
Okay, second and last question, thank you. You mentioned formal support. What are you receiving from these other entities you've presented in that regard?
Yeah, so the governmental entities that we've approached and had conversations with, the county provided a proclamation of support, of acknowledgement of the plan, that this is a plan that's good for the county. Proclamation. Patton Township passed a resolution in support of the plan. The borough passed a resolution in support of, similar to what COG did with supporting the goals and the strategies within the plan, which I think is the direction that the council is going to go forward here tonight. So that was primarily what we've seen. I can't remember, council did, COG did a proclamation, I believe. Is that correct? And all of those we have placed on Center County Forward Docs. So you can go see, currently we are up to 12 formal support. We've received a letter of support from Dr. Bendapudi, a strong letter of support from Penn State, and then several private entities and regional economic development organizations like CEDACOG.
Okay.
So I think that one of the reasons why that was asked is because we actually have it on our consent agenda this evening to affirm the goals and elements of the plan. My intent was, if in fact that is approved by council, that I would then proceed to write a letter on behalf of council to the CBICC to provide that documentation, if you will.
Okay. So while we're not going to take action during this agenda item, based on the comments that I've heard, it sounds like we will accept that letter as part of the consent agenda, which will then in turn direct staff to format an appropriate support document.
Great.
So any, are we in?
Agreed?
Rich, we're good with that? I mean, we'll deal with it when we get to consent agenda,
gonna say,
but while Greg's got the podium.
Yeah, no, I think that's the direction we're headed. How we get there, we need to finalize.
Okay. So it sounds like we've got that process in motion here.
Great, great. Well, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks again. It's good seeing you.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. That's the only special presentation we have tonight. We do next on the agenda have two plans. The first one is P1, Mount Nittany Manor Preliminary Final Subdivision Land Development Plan. This is a potential action item, as I noted earlier. We've already seen this as a sketch plan. Planning Commission has seen it twice now, sketch and preliminary, and we apparently have a recommendation from Planning Commission.
So went through Parks and Rec.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don, did you have anything you wanted to start with before we turn it over to Rep?
Well, I think Lindsay does.
Yeah, I just wanted to do a brief introduction of the plan before Michael has his opportunity to speak. This application for the Mount Nittany Manor subdivision and land development plan, it's a 21.5 acre site. They're proposing approximately 50 residential lots, one of those being an open space lot. Included in the development will be stormwater management, sidewalks, new roads, public streets, and of course the installation of utilities. Eric, as you mentioned, the Planning Commission has seen this. They didn't have any major comments and did make a recommendation for council to approve the plan. And you mentioned the sketch plan, so that's all I really wanted to mention tonight.
All right. Michael, anything to add?
Just briefly, of course, we were here in front of you folks in June and August, Planning Commission a couple of times, your Parks and Rec Committee a couple of times, made a formal plan submission, have responded to staff comments as well as embodied all other comments we've received so far. I think since we were last in front of you, the plan was very much as it was then. I'll only point out one of the differences is a larger grant of parking and open space that was achieved through working with the Parks and Recreation Committee. That's at the west end of the development in the green area. And as of tonight, that's 2.91 acres. One of the more significant adjustments was to bring that lot all the way out to Matilda Avenue to provide frontage from both Matilda and Jay. Otherwise, we're here tonight to answer any questions you may have.
The land dedication that I saw, that is more formalized since our last discussion.
Yes, Ms. Kerner prepared a memo, and that is provided as part of your packet this evening. I know at the Planning Commission level, a representative from the Parks and Rec Committee did elaborate a little on that, but the 2.9 acres is really what we've settled what the Planning Commission saw. And I did want to note too that we did have a lot of public show up for this plan at the Planning Commission level too.
Well, we had a lot of public show up for this plan a dozen years ago when it was first approved too, because I can attest to that. As I forewarned Michael the first time we saw this. Okay. Let's, it's Adam or Don or Lindsay, anything else to add?
I have nothing.
Okay. Questions, comments? Rich, before I entertain any motion? Anything?
No, I once again appreciated that we came through the sketch plan process, that we could help share concerns early and work through them together towards the best plan possible. But it appears we're there.
Susan?
I guess the only question, I can't read my handwriting, so bear with me.
You want me to-
My notes, my notes. The stormwater management, there was ownership will be held by Mount Nittany Manor, but will benefit Mount Nittany Manor and Mount Nittany Terrace. And I'm curious about that in terms of how that works, because the HOA or the corporation Mount Nittany Manor will own the stormwater management, but it benefits the other neighborhood. And does that put does the other neighborhood have responsibility for maintenance? How does that?
No, actually, they don't now. The existing stormwater management basin at the top of the page
Right.
here, down below Rhodes
Right.
Avenue, is on a lot that's privately owned.
Right.
In not very good condition. So this proposal is to acquire that lot. The ownership would be by this HOA and redevelop that stormwater basin to
Okay.
provide management for this development as well as the existing development in conformance with your current regulations.
Thank you. That was all I had. I noticed that there was more open space than was required. And that does not include, are those stormwater basins on the, I guess it's what, sheet 26? It looks like sort of a continuation of the open space. Are those on the right-hand side, are those stormwater basins, they just,
Yeah, those are
that's inclusive too? Okay.
stormwater basin areas, so that lot would be owned by the HOA, but it is
Okay.
open. The lot above it, the long linear corridor reaching to the western parcel would be owned in fee simple by the township.
That's it.
Is that it?
That's it.
No. Okay. Well, Michael, you heard my heartburn the last time you were here, but I was a lone voice in the wilderness. I still have that heartburn. You know, I have to tell you, I'm disappointed that we couldn't get to a plan where, you know, there's a direct connection from Jay down to First Avenue. And, you know, you heard what I had to say the last time. You know, my fear is as we feed people down to Matilda and they make the left, they're going to be just as inclined to continue straight on Matilda as they are to take the right on Rhodes. And while neither road is in a position to really accommodate additional traffic, First Night is in a much better situation than Matilda. Obviously, the intersection with Matilda and Rhodes, I didn't see any stop signs on the plan. Is that part of the plan?
Yeah, it is, and there is a proposed stop sign.
So it's a three-way stop. If you're heading from right to left on Matilda and you hit Rhodes, you will have to stop.
To make the turn, of course, but the stop sign is on Rhodes as currently proposed, so a through condition on Matilda.
Okay. And I was afraid of that because, that, you know, just folks will be inclined to continue on Matilda if there's no stop sign. And I don't know if that's some small, it's a local road, right? I mean,
Correct.
Is there anything that would prevent us from putting a stop sign there?
You can't use stop signs for traffic control, as in speed or,
I was thinking, if people have to stop there, there's an increased chance they turn right on roads, go down to First Avenue, as opposed to going straight across on Matilda, which is not nearly as suitable for that additional traffic as First Avenue is.
one of the things we could look at is once Matilda is opened up, is have Frank's put our signs out and just see what the traffic is doing.
We got that, yeah. We did put it out and got the base data for that, so we have something to compare to.
Yeah, Frank was just out here in the last couple of months getting the pre-construction
Right.
volumes and speeds.
I'm really happy to hear that. So we'll have a baseline of traffic between Rhodes and Nixon on Matilda,
Yes.
okay, that we can compare to. And that may be a tool we can use then for mitigating strategies should they be needed.
Well, the LTAC could get involved.
Okay, I mean, it's not an issue, the plan meets the ordinance, it's not something, my heartburn is not something that would allow me to vote against the plan, but I just wanted to make sure I was on record raising awareness of the issues that came up when we first approved this, and I think are still relevant. We normally.
The developer, of course, is willing to work with you, however, especially in an intersection, however you want to control that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good things about this. There's some better elements to this than what we approved. You know, the open space and parkland is a better element of this land development plan than the one we approved 12 years ago.
Yeah, right.
So, you know, for what that's worth, I know I'm appreciative of that. If there aren't any further comments, normally we wouldn't take public comment until we have a motion on the table, but in this particular case, if you're here to address council on this plan, give you an opportunity to address council before we entertain a motion in the event that we want to incorporate anything into that motion. Yeah,
Mr. Chair, you also have hands online.
okay. So, well, I'm going to ask you to state your name and.
My name is Bob Moyer. I live at 298 Rhodes Lane. What my problem is that you have proposed a sidewalk on Matilda Lane across that'd be the southern end of my property. And I'd like to know why, since that house has been there since 1976, why isn't it grandfathered? It's not part of his development. Why am I the only one on the development that is going to have and maintain a sidewalk? I'd like to propose that instead of a sidewalk, could we not put a curbing up, just like that's in the front of my house? That's my thing.
Okay. We're going to take all comments first, and then we'll huddle, and if appropriate, we'll see if we can respond to those. So do you have any other comments on the plan?
Well, what you were talking about is the three-way stop. There's a large spruce tree that sits right at that corner on the other side of my property that is a hazard, and maybe you might want to look at that sometime.
I mean, as far as sight distance?
Yes.
Okay. That's the intersection we're talking about right there?
Yes.
And can we identify the property and?
With the little blue triangle, that's the Moyer property.
What
And-
is that blue triangle?
It's labeled required grading easement. As part of the sidewalk, the grading would get adjusted there. It wouldn't, then once it was reestablished, then it would go back. It's a temporary easement. But if there's issues with sight distance, once we get this road constructed, and then it meets warrants, and then it could be an all-way stop.
So this map is upside down, really?
Well, north is pointing up.
Because, so this, okay, it's backwards to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Jen, can we see the online participants?
Sure, Mike would have to pass.
Yes,
There's just one person, Laura Egan.
Pardon me?
Laura Egan has her hand raised.
Okay, can we see her?
She does not have a camera. Oh, let's see.
All right, well, can I see?
Yes.
Yeah, let me
Go
just
ahead.
do that.
Oh, there we are. There we go. Yep.
All right, go ahead, Laura.
I'm Laura. I live over in Oakville on Boulsburg Road. I tried to look through the agenda today, but this is my first College Township meeting, and I was wondering if there was any indication of around what price the units would be going for.
Okay, any other questions, comments? No? Okay. Anybody else online like to address council before I consider a motion? Okay. Anybody else in the room? Michael, I don't know if you even know the answer to that question, but we'll give it a shot.
I don't.
I mean, we can take a guess based on lot size, but that would be it, right?
I would say the lots are, over the last 30 years, they're modestly sized, so I would think hopefully this would be something attainable. They'll have actual numbers.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Back to the first question that we got. I assume that the land development plan we approved 12 years ago included that sidewalk. It just never got developed.
That I don't know for sure.
I don't recall,
Yeah.
but obviously none of that plan was developed.
Right, but I assume that the plan required, our ordinance would have required that sidewalk, right?
Was that old enough that we only required sidewalk on one side?
Well, I'm a little confused because we've had multiple approvals of a plan here. I think there's been the one that you're referring to, there may have been even a second at some point. And so they've kind of blended together over the years, at least for me. And I may be wrong about that.
Well, I would say that if it had a sidewalk on that side, yes, it would have continued.
Yeah,
through.
I mean,
We
it
would have
came
never
in
have just
after
stopped it.
we went, I believe it came in after we went to sidewalks on both sides.
Well, we probably did, and like I said, if it had sidewalks, that sidewalk would have went through. And I guess one thing I'd just point out is we just finished a project on Drivable Street where we added a sidewalk in front of 3 properties. And earlier this year, we did Trout Road where we added a path in front of 3 or 4 properties.
Okay, so the sidewalk's required by ordinance.
Yes.
On a grandfathered
Sir, we can't hear, they can't hear you when you're commenting from the, so, but I heard you. The situation that we're talking about, the sidewalk is required.
Yes.
why?
So there's really not an issue, there really isn't a grandfather option here.
Why?
The sidewalk is required, okay?
The sidewalk is required in the new part of the development. Our house is not on the development.
Okay, is that the case in the requirement, in the ordinance?
Well, and the ordinance says any new development sidewalks are required.
Okay,
So
so, hey, respect the process here, okay? We're trying to work through it on your behalf, okay? So technically, this is off-site?
It's not part of the development.
Okay.
It is part of the road.
So,
Yes.
That does not exist.
Which is why there wasn't one there previously, is there was no road there.
There's currently no road where that last piece of right-of-way is showing.
okay. If the developer builds the road, there is no requirement to put the sidewalk in? Because I see that hashed line, that, what do you call, the dark hashed line, seems to indicate that that's part of the property that would require a sidewalk.
Well,
No, that's just the easement.
Yes, there
The
is an
temporary
easement there.
grading easement, that blue triangle, is that what you're referring to?
No, the real,
The black line.
the real bold dark line, that's the
panhandle that
boundaries
goes
of the
into
property.
Right.
Yeah. Our ordinance states all new streets proposed in a land development or subdivision shall include sidewalks along both sides of the
Okay,
street.
that's what I
But,
was
yeah,
getting at.
and it is, technically, that sidewalk is in the right of way, and it's not part of, it's not actually part of the property, it's in front of it.
Will I have to maintain it?
Yes.
So to answer the question, sir, please, okay? Be respectful of the process here. Understand your passion. We're trying to work through this on your behalf, okay? The ordinance then does indeed require the sidewalk.
Yes.
The land development plan does require that this
Well,
sidewalk
technically,
be built.
that's, as shown there, that is part of the parcel.
Okay.
It's, like I said, it's not on their property, it is out in the right of way. Now, they moved it next to the curb in order to minimize impact to the property. If you look on out, the sidewalk, back face of sidewalk is borderlines the property lines, which is typical of the way we do it. The sidewalk's in the right of way, but it adjoins the private property, whereas here, in order to minimize impact, they push the sidewalk over up against the curb.
Okay. Yeah, I see what you mean. It could have continued straight and
Yeah.
still been within the right of way in the easement, okay.
I had a question for Michael. The sidewalks that are gonna be interior to the development, are those going to be maintained individually or by the HOA, or how is that envisioned?
I don't know if that's been decided.
Okay,
I would reckon by the individual homeowners on the
Okay.
lots. That's the ordinance.
thanks.
So just to follow up on that, would that panhandle be considered common HOA space, or it's part of the easement that belongs to that property owner?
Ultimately, it'll be township right-of-way, that peninsula.
So it's like a sidewalk anywhere else on the public
In
street?
that respect, yes.
Okay, so to answer your question, sir, yes, that sidewalk would be your responsibility.
So that's going to be on both sides of the road?
Time out. If we want to address council, I'm going to have to ask you to come to the podium.
Okay.
But to answer your question, because, you know, I don't, we can't pick up the audio when you get too far or CNET from the speaker. So it would be no different than putting a sidewalk in front of my house or anybody else's house. It ultimately then, responsibility falls to the property owner. If I understand all of this correctly. Okay. Did you have something beyond that you wanted to share with us?
Sounds like it's been decided. What should I say?
I have another question.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to step to the podium and identify yourself then.
My name is Cindy Moyer, and I live at 298 Rose Lane. If you're saying the sidewalk has to go on both sides of the road, that would be infringing upon the homeowner beside us, his driveway.
Yeah, was there a question in there for us?
Well, yeah, if you're gonna put a sidewalk in front of his driveway, how is that gonna work?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand what you're talking about. Is there something?
You said that there were supposed to be sidewalks on both sides of the road.
I think maybe Michael has an answer. I think we can see the other
driveway.
side of the road, yeah, barely, on this cut.
Yeah, this proposal is a sidewalk on one side because the grade is prohibitively steep and the other is very steep. So this is what has been presented thus far. And it's more amenable on the other side. You're correct, we pulled the sidewalk into the curb because it's steep there as well.
Okay, and it meets the ordinance, correct?
Yes. Yeah, we, in certain, and Don can probably speak to this better than I can, certain conditions with respect to slope and grade, where it's prohibitive to construct a sidewalk, we allow for this configuration.
Correct.
Is that using our matrix, our newly formed matrix, or is that a long-standing practice?
That's more of a long-standing practice. For example, what we just did on Drivabus, a lot of the length of that path that goes from Shiloh over to Gerald is separated from the road by 5 or 6 feet. But where we just finished it, because of the grades, we pushed that sidewalk tight up against the curb line. I mean, it's just sort of like, can you build it where it's at? You know, it's like, where can you build it and where can't you?
Okay. All right, any other questions before I consider a motion? Okay, just to wrap up this sidewalk thing, where township easements or PennDOT right-of-ways exist, sidewalks can be built. Just because they haven't been built doesn't mean they won't ever be built. So as long as that easement is there, you know, doesn't mean that you're guaranteed not to ever have a sidewalk there. You're generally going to get a sidewalk once the threshold is reached that, at least in our world, deems the sidewalk as necessary, required or necessary. So.
So if I get this right, I'm going to have a sidewalk where the rest of the development does not. There are no sidewalks in that whole development on the eastern end of what you call Lamont. I don't call it Lamont because it's nothing like Lamont out there. So now I got to maintain it. I got to spend money on it if somebody rips it up or tears it up. I think this just made my decision whether or not to stay in this township. Thanks a lot.
All right. Any other comments, questions? We have a draft motion based on the recommendation from Planning Commission and staff. At this point, the chair will entertain a motion if council so desires to take action. What is the timeline on this?
Yeah, the question was, what's the timeline?
Oh,
How much time does council have remaining to act?
Not timeline as to when they want to construct.
Yeah.
No, but the timeline on the plan.
What's the deadline for us taking action?
Yep, I can check, I can pull that up for you in 1 second here.
Since I didn't get a motion right away, I wanted to ask that question.
So, yeah.
Thank you for asking that.
All right. They are in, sorry.
Well, while she's,
Yeah, give me a second here.
while Lindsay is looking this up, I will offer that this council has heard loud and clear from the residents of the township that mobility, particularly pedestrian access, should be a high priority. And as a result, we've undertaken a sidewalk master, is that what we call it? Sidewalk master plan?
Pedestrian facility.
Pedestrian facility master plan, and have made sidewalks, development of sidewalks, and development of pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure a priority. And to the extent that some residents may find that an personal inconvenience, it is the feeling, at least of those who represent the entire township, that this is being done for the health, overall health and welfare of the entire community, not just College Township, but everywhere in the center region.
The action, sorry. The action deadline is the 25th of this month.
All right.
And if staff needed more time to review, then that would be a request from staff to the developer for more time.
I don't have any out.
The reason for the sidewalk on the private property that's not part of the plan is driven by the construction of the road. And again, because the right-of-way exists. I mean, it's a very logical sequencing. Clearly, it is out of character from what that portion of the neighborhood has been over time. So those points are very valid. But none of this would have come to fruition had there not been the construction of the roadway. And I think that's an important point for council's consideration as well.
Well, I mean, is it any different than I live next to a forest that's zoned to be developed, and eventually it does get developed? You know, it's,
No, and I think you're right, the only question in my mind, to your point about the reason for the ordinance, the master plan, the pedestrian plan, and understanding that, how that works in particular with the new road. I guess the only concern I have is, and I don't know this, I don't have the experience on planning commission, I don't have the history here. You know, the resident mentioned grandfathered, and so that was the word that I picked up. And is there a grandfather clause somewhere? And you had mentioned that the plans had been brought forward many times, so there seemed to be a little bit of a confusion around the chronology. But I defer in terms of not knowing the history. But do you want to bring that up?
Let our zoning officer take a,
I guess one thing that to understand, under the MPC, you as council have the authority to say, we want sidewalks through the entire neighborhood, and you can put the burden of construction and cost onto the individual homeowners. That is an option that is out there, and that has been talked at council meetings in the past, and council never had any intention of pursuing that angle, but that is a prerogative of council. The particular lot in question, you could say, you know what, I want you to build the one around the corner to the other end of your property. You have that authority.
And that's helpful, thank you.
as far as, I don't believe that there's any language that exists within our existing ordinance that
Speaks to the grandfather clause.
speaks to the grandfather
Okay, that's
clause
fine.
at all. And not in this context, so.
And that's helpful, thank you.
Well, I'm still open to entertaining a motion.
Well, I just have a question. It appears that the sidewalk that there's a land between the sidewalk and that property owner's property. Is that correct?
Can we put that back up?
Yeah.
If you go to sheet 22, Mike, it
Actual
is
sheet
a
22, it's page,
even bigger blow up.
it's 26. and then it's 22.
Just tell me when to stop.
I'm looking at,
That's
this is B.
You're looking at, I'm sorry,
Drainage area map B was cleaner, easier to read than that, so I was just looking at that.
We
Well,
have a
there's
better.
sheet
Is that what we
22
were
is
just
pretty
looking
good.
at?
Yeah,
Okay.
too.
Okay.
There we go.
This one right here.
Right there, yeah.
so the question was, what is the,
Who
what's the
current?
status of the property next to
Yeah.
the resident?
Right. The developer currently owns that between 298 roads and that proposed sidewalk. Is that correct?
I believe that's actually an easement.
It's not owned by 298 roads.
Definitely not, no.
Right. So that's a little bit of a concern for me. I understand the right-of-way and everything like that, but you're not giving that property owner the additional land to that sidewalk. I guess my perspective on that is, I believe it's the homeowners association would be the most logical on it, because they own the land between the road and that.
Well, I think this would be like any typical right-of-way. When that road is dedicated to the township, we will be getting from that 50-foot right-of-way, that entire width, that will become township right away. So just like in front of most homes, you own, the township owns out to a line past the sidewalk. Or if you go further to the east, the sidewalk's actually tight against the right of way.
Sure.
So it's still in the right of way, but it generally adjoins it. Some of the subdivisions we have, the sidewalk is actually in the private property. There's a couple that we've done it that way too.
I understand right of ways. The difference with this one is, I owned it up until the right of way. And if you put a sidewalk in there, I understand I agree completely with what has been said. They don't own it up to the,
But
right
I
away.
thought the easement had always been there.
Yes.
That easement exists.
So easement right away.
I understand easement versus ownership of, College Township does not currently own that. A private party owns that. Is that correct or not?
That's correct.
Thank you. So at that point, it is a different argument. If you wanted to put sidewalks and my property adjoins the right of way, I absolutely understand what has been said and everything, but that's not the case here.
I see.
So you're saying currently that's not the case? So we couldn't do what Mark was saying we could do right now? We
Yeah.
couldn't do it until such time as they built
we
that
could,
road and turned it over?
take that argument different. If I said you have to put sidewalks in, whose property would that be on?
Your own.
It would be on the owner, the developer's land at this point, and they would be responsible for it.
Right.
So your point, Rich, is that the immediately adjoining property is a separate lot within the developer's domain, ownership.
Yes.
Okay. And there's not a dwelling unit that is proposed to be constructed on that particular piece of property.
So therefore,
I'm
it's in-
looking for affirmation or confirmation of that.
I mean, you're talking about just that space between the sidewalk and the property line, correct? Where the easement lies. You're saying that's really not Moyer's property, so they're not directly adjacent to the new sidewalk.
Correct.
Okay.
At this time.
Yes, but were this to be built without a sidewalk, the Moyers would still be responsible for mowing and all of that. That is by ordinance. Neighborhoods, and I believe your neighborhood does not have a sidewalk.
Correct.
College Township owns probably 10 feet of what you think is your front yard, and you were responsible to mow it. And if you don't, I come after you.
I understand.
But
But there's no property owner between me and your right of way.
Okay, so picking up on what Rich said, currently, the property owner is responsible for everything to the curb. The additional responsibility they would take on with this plan approved as is the actual concrete sidewalk, correct?
There is currently,
The maintenance there.
The maintenance of it.
Yeah.
That would be the difference. That'd be the only difference between right now and when this is built. If that is correct, I think everybody agrees that's correct, right? Is there an opportunity here, is there an opening, based on what Rich said, for us to put a note on a plan that requires the HOA to maintain the sidewalk? Is that too much of a stretch? Is that too far out there for what we're
I would say,
Is that,
yes.
sledgehammer
I
on
think
a
a court
fly?
would disagree with you.
I'm seeing what Rich is saying now, because they
And I'm
have no
offering it.
responsibility for that area whatsoever now.
He doesn't
So we
own
would
it.
be saying to them, okay, but now you're responsible for this portion that's outside your property. If that lot was created as part of this subdivision, there's no doubt that they would have to do that.
Yes, absolutely.
But the fact that there was an existing lot, and this is now saying, okay, you don't have any responsibility there now, but you're gonna be taking that on.
Yes.
So that was my follow-up then, is there a way to move that responsibility to the, build a sidewalk, but move the responsibility
To the
to the
HOA.
current property owner who would hand it off to the HOA, which would seem to address the property owner's heartburn. He seemed to be as concerned about the maintenance as it was.
Yes.
And it's, I'm just floating that out there as we're
Yeah,
trying to reach some kind of,
I'm seeing what Rich is saying.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm understanding your argument completely, Rich, at this point, the Moyers aren't paying property tax on that sliver.
Correct,
So somebody's paying that. They may be maintaining it, but it's not their property.
correct.
So when the easement comes through, we're acquiring an easement from a property owner that is not the Moyers. And the argument that they heard before they left the room was, even though it's not your property, you just got a sidewalk. Oh, and you're adding a sliver of property that you'll be responsible for taxes on.
Right. Which you have no beneficial ownership of.
Current, yeah, you're right. Currently, they don't.
Or in the future.
Or in the future.
Or in the future.
It's a good point, Rich, and it's something that didn't pop out, at least initially, looking at it.
Yeah,
but-
like I said, if Moyer's property came all the way up there, then absolutely what was discussed at the beginning is 100% correct. I support. And unfortunately, you run into situations, but that's not the case. Currently, somebody else owns that land.
Shall I ask them, or do you want to ask the developer representative about the HOA assuming responsibility for the maintenance of the sidewalk that's to be constructed?
well, it would be the sidewalk and the grass in between, right? I mean, if you're gonna do one, you might as well,
Well, on that sliver, right?
Right.
Yes, right. Well,
I mean, following the logic,
Yes.
it's the whole piece that they're
Correct.
now being given through this.
Yes.
I said sidewalk, but if we're gonna follow the logic here, then it really should be the entire piece of property that it's being turned over to
They may
them.
make it concrete the whole way, so they don't have to mow it, but that's an operational decision. But
I would think we would ask that property owner, would you be willing to maintain the grass portion? And just make the sidewalk the homeowners, because they're gonna have some benefit, that'll give them some benefit. I mean, when you have right of way in front of your house, that's.
yeah, I think we can certainly ask, but I don't know that we can.
That we couldn't force.
I don't think we could force. I think that's that's a pretty easy decision for me, but I can't say that. The other thing that we have to look at too is a little bit of a concern. We've said that we have sidewalks on both sides throughout the whole rest of the development, but here we're only gonna have one and it's only gonna impact you.
Yeah. Yeah, and the reason it isn't on the other side is it's too steep to get.
Sure. So the developer's getting benefit by us not saying, you have to have that in there, you get it in there. The trade-off is that they have to maintain what they do put in that segment.
Sometimes local government is awkward, but darn it, isn't it effective? It can be.
remains to be seen.
I mean, the easy thing to do would have been to
Force them to do it.
put forth a motion and do what we thought was required. I mean, I'm still open to a motion. I mean, are we coalescing around a motion that includes an additional condition that we think is appropriate and legal?
If
I'm
that's,
asking.
if that's the way this is moving, could I request that rather than make that an imposition upon the HOA by fiat, that it could also be made upon the first lot owner in the Mount Nittany Manor development as an extension of their obligation down that corridor for 60 feet? And let the developer decide which, either or.
But what happens if that lot doesn't develop for 10 years or sell?
Well, it would be the developer's
It would be on the
obligation.
developer.
Okay.
That was a question. Are the sidewalks going in as the lots develop or in advance? Do we?
In parallel, but effectively in advance. They'll build the public
Okay.
infrastructure, including
Okay.
sidewalks.
Okay.
Am I understanding you correctly to say that the extension, the sidewalk in front of the Moyers property would then become the responsibility of the lot owner next to that, inside the development?
I would request that your deliberation allow for that possibility,
I see.
either that
Okay.
lot owner or the
Lot
HOA.
one.
Okay. But that would be known ahead of time if somebody is purchasing that lot?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so are easements and right-of-ways, but realtors don't.
Right, but that's an unusual circumstance, but the important piece is that that lot owner would be able to have that information to make that decision.
Yes.
I think that, I mean, that's part of the development. They could make that decision. I think the cleanest is the homeowners, but, you know, as long as it's getting taken care of and we know who to point to if it isn't, then I think we're in
So
good
is this
space.
going to be a condition, or are we going, is council suggesting an actual note on the plan, or both?
I think
Include the note on the plan.
Well, the
Yeah.
condition
That's
could
the
be included.
condition, is to include the note.
Yeah. And note that lot one, I think, is that adjacent lot, if, you know, they're deciding.
Either the developer or the,
The developer, the homeowners association, or an adjoining property owner, or the adjoining lot owner.
the lot one would be.
Is that, I don't have
Well,
much lots on there.
I'm assuming, is that lot one, Michael? Have you identified it?
I doubt it. But
Okay, adjoining
the first
property
one,
owner,
yes.
Oh, I see lot one.
adjoining lot owner.
Yeah, so if you make that adjoining lot owner, I would make it clear that it's not that particular parcel number that's the Moyers. That way, if it comes to pass, number of years go down the
Sure.
line and folks aren't here,
Interpret
that's just language clarity.
No, you're absolutely right. And if we could have I'll keep going back till I find a lot number. I think it is lot number one.
Well, I
Or
think
the tax parcel
the
number.
condition can leave
Those
it,
won't be assigned yet.
the condition can direct staff to place a note on the plan.
To the satisfaction of the
that
engineer.
accurately reflects the discussion tonight.
Yeah,
I don't know that we have to have it word for word.
right. The intent is there, and then, you know, to the satisfaction, all of this is to the satisfaction of the engineer, I believe.
All right.
So.
Are we there?
I just want to restate, I absolutely support what was said about putting sidewalks in to the benefit of the township in its entirety. But there's some different circumstances on this one.
Well, I made that statement unaware, exactly, I think all of us were unaware of the unique circumstances these are, until you brought it up.
Sure.
And we were working off the comment that we had received so far about standard, traditional, after-the-fact sidewalks going in existing easements and right-of-ways. This is not that.
Right, right.
This is not that. Now we know that. Thank you. So are we nearing a?
Well, let me stir the pot a little. What about the little L where it starts down roads? Because that is not on this property owner's, the developer's land.
Right? That's where,
That's actually an R right away.
Where it makes the turn.
the
Adam.
curve.
Down roads, yeah.
Going down roads.
Yes.
Yeah.
When
That's
it
it.
leaves, I'm looking at, where I see a nice
Well,
picture
that's
of
it.
this is sheet 65.
Actually, the curb ramp.
Right.
And actually curb ramps are the townships.
There,
Sidewalks are not,
excellent.
but we would not be maintaining that curb ramp. So an adjoining property owner can keep going. But as far as to replace, like liquid fuels, you can use liquid fuels for curb ramps. You cannot use liquid fuels for sidewalks.
Right.
You can't use liquid fuels for curbs.
silly, but
Sure. Somehow I think College Township would do above and beyond, but
Any interest in taking action on this tonight?
if we're headed in that direction, yeah, I'm 100%.
Good. Because I think we're 99% of the way there.
Yeah.
The other 1% is for someone to verbalize a motion.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
As the newest member of council tonight?
Don, any suggestions on where in the,
then a recommended motion.
yeah,
You can just add it as a condition on the end if you'd
just
like.
add it on, yeah? Okay,
Yeah.
very good. Mr. Chair, I recommend council move to approve the Mountain Indian Manor preliminary final residential subdivision and land development plan dated July 26, 2024, and last revised September 23rd, 2024, subject to the following conditions. 1, within 90 days from the date of approval by council, all conditions must be satisfied, final signatures must be obtained, and the plan must be recorded with the Center County Recorder of Deeds office. Failure to meet the 90-day recordation time requirement will render the plan null and void. 2, pay all outstanding review fees. 3, address to the satisfaction of the township engineer any outstanding plan review comments. Could we actually put it in there?
I just added it.
Yeah, okay. 4, fully comply with College Township Code, Section 180-12. 5, post surety as approved by the township engineer prior to recording. 6, provide an intent to serve letter for College Township Water Authority. 7, provide proof of National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, NPDES approval. 8, record approved declaration of stormwater access and maintenance easement. 9, work with the College Township zoning officer and Center County 911 to establish proper addressing, which must be in place prior to occupancy. 10, record property owner association documentation per 180-27. 11, all conditions must be accepted in writing within 7 days from the date of the conditional approval letter from the township engineer. And finally, 12,
Place note on plan.
indicating that the developer, homeowners association, or potentially Lot 1 owner will maintain the sidewalk adjoining 298 Rhodes Lane
In its entirety.
in its entirety. Thank you for that.
I'll second the
Okay.
motion.
We have a motion on the floor. Michael, is that clear what's been asked?
Yes.
I'll go back to my comment about local government. We do have an opportunity. Do we have contact information for the Moyers?
I am sure we have.
I'm sure we can find them.
Or they will find us? Okay. I think we did what we could do within our realm to address the comments. So I want to commend staff and, Rich and staff and everybody for taking the time and making the effort, to vet those possibilities. Mark?
One thing that's raising a big concern for me from a legality standpoint, I really question whether council has the authority to place a condition on the plan that does not have any requirements within our ordinance.
We
Within our books.
We negotiated that with the developer.
Well, I heard this was to be approved on the condition that. Just wanted to point that out before this goes.
Okay, no, fair enough.
Sure. And that's why we have all conditions must be accepted in writing within 7 days from the date of the conditional approval letter. So if that's not acceptable, they will, of course, let us know, and then we'll come up with a worse solution.
So let's just, thinking that one through, let's say it were not, they would let you know, offer you an extension on your time clock, and come back next month and discuss it further.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And we would probably waive the extension fee, given that we created.
Oh, well, no,
Yeah.
they're not in that gray area at this point. They're
No.
fine. They don't have an approval, or conditional approval.
Right, right. I got you.
Yeah.
I will say, though, before we vote and we move on to the next agenda item, I want to go on record, as I did when we first saw this plan, that it is now incumbent upon the folks in this room to take action in two areas adjacent to this development. One is the Bush Avenue extension. You know, we've now approved 51 homes in here. That is going to put additional pressure on Matilda and First Avenue. I think it's incumbent upon us to move the Bush Avenue extension project ahead to the extent that we can. And the second item that we need to prioritize is the building of the sidewalk along Struble with the money that we got from the last development we approved. The fee in lieu, or how do we refer to that?
It's a sidewalk fee in lieu sidewalk, yeah.
Yeah.
For the last Maxwell project that came through.
Right,
Yeah.
because all that traffic is gonna go one of two ways. And the Bush Avenue extension would address and try to mitigate the one direction. And the other direction, you know, we're gonna funnel the additional traffic through a 2-block section of Struble that doesn't have sidewalks. And we have people walking dogs and pushing strollers in the street right now. So just want to go on record that you're going to hear me chirping about that over the next year or two.
If you could, maybe for those that aren't familiar with the Bush extension, what exactly you're referring to?
Well, I think maybe Adam or Mike could do a better job of that than me. Our official map, we
Well,
have.
that is true. On the official map, we actually show a future connection, or extension, if you will, of Bush Avenue to continue down to, ultimately to College
College
Avenue.
Avenue.
And that is something that, you know, we've not had the opportunity to this point to advance, but that would be the ultimate connection, and essentially that involves center concrete property, et cetera. So in trying to do that, it's a rather complicated potential extension of Bush Avenue, but it does make a lot of logical sense to try to make that connection. And again, that's why it appears and remains on the township's official map, so.
Great.
And if it was easy, we'd already have it built.
Right.
So it's time for us to recognize that as difficult and challenging as that is,
Yes.
we are now obligated to move forward on that.
Yeah, as that section of the township continues to
Yes.
grow, we need to resolve it.
Yeah. And then I think the sidewalk on Struble's a lot easier. I think most of that's within our control. Yeah, design and engineering may be a challenge, but, you know, we control the construction of that.
Did we get a second?
Yes, Susan.
Okay, I'm sorry.
All right.
It was a while ago.
Any other discussion on the motion? By the way, thanks for bringing that up, Mark. So we have Plan B now in place, should that.
I feel better.
All right, all in favor of the motion as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, we got a thumbs up from somebody online. Hopefully that's for our work tonight. I think that's what we do, local government. We give our best shot. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
All right. That includes the first plan for tonight. That takes us to our second plan for tonight. That's before we even get into the business part of the agenda. P2, Pennsylvania State University, 335 Innovation Boulevard at Innovation Park. We made Mark come back for a second trip. Hopefully we won't keep him as long as the first trip.
Brought along the renderings we shared last.
Yep, I have them.
We do have
Okay.
this, yeah.
Who's gonna do a bit of a brief introduction here?
I can start, just because last time you saw this plan, may have been a little bit confusing. There is a requirement in the University Plan District that, there's a master plan that exists for Innovation Park. If anything with access changes, then that must be updated on the master plan. And because the Innovation Boulevard here is changing from a township road to a private road, we asked them to update the master plan to show us that change. So I just wanted to clear that up with you. The Planning Commission did see this plan. This is a research and development building in the western portion of Innovation Park. The building is 55 feet, and including sidewalks, parking, lighting, stormwater collection, et cetera. There are some remaining comments. One, of course, is stormwater, that our stormwater engineer is currently working back and forth with Penn State. And then the other, which we're looking for council input, is this is a two-phased project. And the second phase is when they will finish or complete the Innovation Boulevard, which will be then a private road. So their access to the building is actually up and through that parking lot. So we just wanted to make council aware of that, so you could think about it as the plan, as Mark is presenting. So.
Mark, anything else to add?
Pretty much covers it. We've seen it and gone through the process and discussed it, and I'm open to any other further discussion items that you might need further information on.
All right, well, on that, does anyone need any further information before we consider action? Susan, Rich?
No.
No, how about that? Okay. And I have nothing either.
Oh, my.
Don't jinx it.
So it was good that you were P2 tonight instead of P1, I guess, huh? All right, if there aren't further discussion, anything staff wants to add before we entertain a motion? All right. At this point, the chair would entertain a motion on this plan.
I'll make a motion that council move to approve the Pennsylvania State University 335 Innovation Building at Innovation Park preliminary final land development plan dated August 19th, 2024, and last revised September 9th, 2024, subject to the following conditions. 1, within 90 days from the date of approval by council, all conditions must be satisfied, final signatures must be obtained, and the plan must be recorded with the Center County Recorder of Deeds office. Failure to meet the 90 days recordation time requirement will render the plan null and void. 2, pay all outstanding review fees. 3, address to the satisfaction of the township engineer any outstanding plan review comments as of the September 13th, 2024 comment letter. 4, fully comply with College Township Code Section 180-12. 5, provide proof of National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, NPDES approval. Number 6, all conditions must be accepted in writing within 7 days from the date of the conditional approval letter from the township engineer.
Second.
All right, any discussion? We have a motion on the floor. Anybody from the public or anybody online want to address council before we consider action? Is there anybody online, Jen?
No hands.
No hands. Okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Plan approved. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for your time.
That concludes plans, and that takes us to reports. First up on reports tonight is the manager's report.
A couple of items here. I actually have no substantive updates on the first page or really the second page of items that are listed there. I did want to draw your attention to what is labeled as incoming correspondence with respect to a facilities custodian position. I just wanted to clarify for council that in years past, we have had a member of our road crew, one of our labor operators, has essentially had that assignment. That's traditionally the way that this has been operated. And the labor operator pay rate has been applied for that individual. This essentially is the same thing, but we are naming it differently. We have been unsuccessful in recruiting since the individual that had been doing this retired, and actually we did have a replacement, but that individual assumed a more full-time position on the road crew itself. So we've had some degree of difficulty recruiting for this position. We think that this subtle change in the job name and a little more specific job description, even though it still falls under Public Works, will assist us and provide us with the flexibility that we need to get that position filled. So I did want to draw your attention to that. The other item that I wanted to mention is that, you know, for some time now, your humble manager has been referred to mockingly as an award-winning manager.
What?
Yes. And I'm very pleased to say, though, that there is now a new member of staff that is now also an award-winning individual. On October 29th at the Center County Association of Township Officials meeting, our very own Jen Snyder received the John Alman Award, which recognizes long excellence in municipal government, and I can't think of a more deserving individual to receive that award. So I did want to call out Jen and express our appreciation for all the work that she's done, not only with College Township, but Jen has worked for many years with CCATO as their,
I think she's
the
the
secretary
glue
treasurer.
that holds the
And
organization.
she is the glue that holds the organization together, there's no doubt. But, you know, Jen currently works with Miles Township, she's very active in PSATs. And I think that, you know, we're very fortunate to have Jen with us. And so now, you folks can refer to someone else on staff as an award winner. So, congratulations,
Thank you.
Jen.
Questions for the manager, the award-winning manager?
He's still.
He's
yeah.
still?
Mockingly.
No?
Just in generalities, are you being nice bringing the facilities custodian position change, or is that really under your hat?
We were just letting you know.
Okay, okay, I was gonna say.
Primarily, go ahead.
No, I was just pointing to Eric that we do have a hand up too.
Okay.
Primarily, you're gonna be seeing ads.
Yeah.
And that's why, and I didn't want anybody thinking, oh my gosh, we just created a new position, which we really haven't. We are simply kind of renaming and doing some slight restructuring.
Right, the reason I ask is in the memo, it says staff is requesting council's approval to reclassify, create the new facilities custodian position.
Okay.
You know. You didn't have to, but you are.
Right.
Very good. Thank you.
It never hurts
Since it's there, we would have to take action to
do that, but again, that's at your
Yep.
discretion,
Okay,
affording you the opportunity.
thank you. I'll pass.
Susan?
No reports, the calendar fell in a way that I had no meetings.
Okay. Well, I was still on the award-winning manager's report.
Oh.
If we had questions for him.
No, I'm moving along.
I wanted to get another award winner in there, sorry. But in all seriousness, though, I know we've kind of joked around about this. I knew John Allman and worked with him, and I have to agree with you that I couldn't think of someone, in all seriousness now, more deserving of the award than Jen.
Thanks.
I just want to make sure we make that clear while we're joking around with Adam. I worked with John, and, you know, this is a serious award, and you are deserving of it. Congratulations. All right.
Mr. Chair, I did want to acknowledge a hand
Oh,
up too.
Laura, this isn't really an action item, so we generally don't open the floor to public comment, but do you have a specific quick question we can answer?
Yeah, so this is Laura. I guess I just wasn't sure when to ask this, but I had a question about the parks that I saw in the meeting. agenda?
About the parks?
Parks report?
Yeah.
Oh, the parks report. Do we have a parks report?
Yeah, it's in, it's in.
It's in the, region, it's in our next agenda?
P&R.
Yeah, okay.
Report C.
Yeah, keep your hand up. I'll get back to you.
Okay.
All right, so that then does move us into B, COG Regional County Liaison Reports. Dustin's not here, Susan didn't have any. Did you have either of yours meet?
I had, since we last met, I had Parks Governance meet, which is actually the first time we've met since June. We were on a little hiatus until the new executive director got in and got his feet under him a little bit and everything. So one of the things that was requested was to give him an opportunity to opine in on what he thought would be a good path, and he shared, and I will share, that it was similar to what College Township has coalesced around from previous meetings, in that some type of committee of elected officials working with the authority on in specific items would be a good thing. And the executive director really focused it on the program plan, the CIP, and detailed, going into the detailed budget. So there are still people that are opposed to any kind of elected committee. They want to kill the Parks Capital, which the Parks Capital, under its current duties, is worthless because it hasn't done any of those things and has shown no inkling towards moving towards that. And actually, some of the duties that are in the Parks Capital Committee via the matrix that the General Forum approved moved out of the COG. They're more into the municipalities or the agency directly or the authority directly and everything. So the real gist was a repurposing of the Parks Capital. It was interesting, one of the strong pushes not to have the committee was that elected officials have enough to do already and they don't need one more thing and everything. And I could only offer, well, College Township talked about it and we think it's important and we're ready to stand behind it. So that was an interesting foray. If I had to read the room right now, it's 3-4 a committee, 3 against committee, and a 1 toss-up. So we'll see. My biggest thing is let's move forward one way or the other. No committee. My personal belief is the way that the ones that don't want a committee, they want to use the stuff that has been there and hasn't been used for 20, 30 years. But now they're going to use it. So that's kind of definition of insanity kind of stuff to me. So that's why I'm a supporter of having some type of working committee with the authority to get over these homes and everything. So stay tuned. We're hoping to bring something to November General Forum, so, before we lose momentum again.
Well, I venture to guess that you do represent the consensus opinion of this council in that.
Yeah, we talked about it. I got that still before I moved forward with that position. So I appreciate that. That gave me I could speak strongly to that at that committee meeting and everything, which I did.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, I had COG Facilities yesterday morning and joint Lucy CRPC this afternoon. I provide a written report on both. The only thing I would add beyond that is we held the joint meeting at the new Millbrook Marsh facility, and I wasn't. Susan, you were there, right? Yeah, you guys
I missed
were
that
there.
one.
What's it?
Rich, what?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a remarkable facility.
Yeah, I missed that.
Yeah, Dustin.
I was late for that. Yeah, it was Dustin.
Yeah, that was my first experience there.
okay.
And, you know, we sometimes get hung up with some of the regional projects and the delays and those kinds of things. But, you know, I got to tell you, that is an impressive facility and I think a very proud regional accomplishment that we can all stand behind proudly. Incredible. That
And
would
it's in
conclude.
College Township.
Yeah, host municipality. That would conclude the COG Regional Accounting Liaison reports. That would take us to staff, Planning Commission, and other committee reports, which Laura will include the Park and Rec report after we get through staff and PC. So staff, anything to report on? Okay, so it's time to lighten the mood a little bit and get our PC report.
Well, you asked for it. Before coming over here tonight, I was discussing what joke I was going to tell with my wife, and this is what she said to me. She said, "Don't try to be too charming or too witty or too intellectual. Just be yourself." We reviewed the indoor recreation facilities in the general industrial zoning district last night, approved it by a vote of 3-2 with one person was absent. We also heard the Berkentine presentation, which the gentleman's here tonight. We thought it was a real, vibrant, dynamic plan. And any questions?
Susan?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Yes, thank you for lightening the mood.
And thank your wife.
Yes. All right. That would take us to other committee reports. Our packet does have a written, formal, I don't know if it would be considered a report. Is it considered a report? Yeah, I guess.
Says meeting report.
Yeah. Dave, you have anything you want to offer on top of what we have in our package?
I have a question.
Okay. And stay up there because I'm then going to open the.
This is just a question, I think for staff, okay? Because we came up tonight, notes on a plan, okay? Does that also obligate the township to do things, or is that just the developer to do things?
Typically, they are requirements that the municipality is seeking of the developer. So typically, it doesn't compel the township to things. On the other hand, I guess in theory, it could, depending upon the extensiveness of the node or the circumstance.
Okay. Okay, so I just needed some clarification on that. It's water to the bridge at this point, but.
Any questions for Dave on anything that was in the report?
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Stay there. Laura, you're going to be up next. I just want to express my appreciation. I know we drug you into the Mount Nittany Manor early in the process. And I'm very glad we did. Because I don't think it was a coincidence that we ended up with a far better open space and park arrangement than we had with the initial plan.
Thank you, thank you.
So,
Just to, in the township's process and timeline, the clock you referred to, Parks and Rec is actually not part of that process, okay, in any official manner. So we kind of just have to watch the agendas, and when one comes up, kind of like raise our hands and say, hey, what do you got? Okay, but we're glad we can do it. That's the takeaway.
the sketch plan gave us that opportunity.
Yeah, we reviewed the sketch plan. We never actually saw the preliminary final plan. So there were some things we could not comment on because they weren't in the plan that we saw.
So it worked out well. Thank you.
I'm glad you're happy with it. Okay, and hopefully going forward, everything will keep getting better.
Laura, did you have a question for council on the parks report?
I did. I live near the Oak Hall Regional Park. but I didn't see that on the list, and I just wondered if it fell under the purview of College Township.
The Oak Wall Park was actually given to COG. Okay, it's actually owned by the Center Region Council of Governments and funded through the Center Region Council of Governments. So the College Township Parks and Recreation Committee only has once removed contact with that, okay? There is a member of the Center Region Parks and Recreation Authority that is on our committee, but we do not have any direct say, if you will, over what happens there.
Laura, so to be clear, the things that you saw in that report that's being performed by the township, that type of work is being done by the COG Park and Rec staff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
You're referring to that matrix that was included in there, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I saw that
Yeah.
it was mentioning removing exotic species, and I talked with a neighbor about that up in Oak Hall Park, and so I wondered if that just got overlooked, but now I see it's
What-
a different group.
What, I'm sorry, I did not hear what your neighbor said.
Oh, sorry. I noticed some of the parks included removing non-native
Oh,
plant.
yeah. Yeah, those projects come up every once in a while, and when we have the wherewithal to do it, we do. But those are, how can I say that? Because it's Oak Hall, that's going to fall under COG's purview, okay?
Okay.
But we'll do what we can with the ones we can. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it is within our purview to ask or request that the Regional Park Service make that a priority. You know, that it becomes a budgetary thing, but as the host municipality, we can. So if there's a particular area that you're talking about within the park, please share that information with us.
Okay, yeah, it was a neighbor I ran into while I was at the park who mentioned it, so I'll have to get in touch with her again, or let her know to come to this meeting, for that meeting. And just thanks for still having Zoom meetings.
Okay.
All right, nothing else for Dave?
Until later?
Yeah,
Right.
thanks. That concludes item number C under reports, takes us to, I believe it does, yes.
Yes.
Takes us to item D, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging reports. Go to our assistant manager, Mr. Bloom.
Sure. You know, as is our practice at the first meeting of each month, I spend a little bit of time kind of covering what's on the agenda for DEIB for the month. So month-long acknowledgements, National Native American, American Indian, and Alaskan Native Heritage Month, National Veterans and Military Families Month. Week-long celebration, Transgender Awareness Week is November 13th through the 19th. Holidays, I neglected to mention Diwali at our last meeting. That fell October 31st through November 1st. Coming up next week is Veterans Day on November 11th. Also, World Kindness Day, November 13th. International Day of Tolerance is November 16th, and we'll have Thanksgiving here towards the end of the month on the 28th. So that's all I have.
Is it Black Friday a holiday? Not yet?
Not yet.
All right. Then that, if there's no questions for the assistant manager, we can move on to the consent agenda. Tonight's consent agenda includes under CA1 includes one set of minutes from our October 17th, 2024 council meeting. CA2 includes 7 pieces of correspondence. The first being A, email from Daniel Materna dated October 18th, 2024 regarding the problem gambling services in the United States. The second is item B, email from Dan Materna dated October 18th, 2024 regarding location of Category 4 casinos. The third is item C, an email from Helen Love dated October 19th, 2024 regarding casino impact study. The fourth is item D, email from Andrew Schaefer dated October 20th, 2024 regarding Dale Summit revitalization. The fifth is item E, an email from Dan Materna dated October 20th, 2024, regarding owner of the Nittany Mall. The sixth item is item F, CA2F, an email from Dan Materna dated October 30th, 2024, regarding casino information. And lastly, item number 7 is from Crew 814, is item G, Crew 814, Planned Residential Development Review, Transmittal and Plan Narrative. Then under CA3, there are 5 action items. The first is A, Keller Engineering, Proposal of Service Contract, Regional Shared Use Path, cost not to exceed $325,568.58. The second item is CA3B, the 2025 Council Meeting Schedule. The third item is CA3C, appointment of Suleiman Din to the Planning Commission. That's the College Township Planning Commission, effective December 1st, 2024, with a term expiration of December 31st, 2025. The fourth item is CA3D, Crew 814, Planned Residential Development Request for a public hearing for public comment and review to be set on December 19th, 2024. And lastly, the fifth item is CA3E, Center County Economic Development Plan, affirmation of goals and intent of plan. Are there any items in the consent agenda that any members would like pulled before we consider action to accept it as presented? Go ahead.
Not necessarily pulled, but just clarified that CA3A, the action to be approved is authorizing the manager to accept and execute the proposal. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then on CA3E, the action is to direct the manager to issue an affirmation letter of the economic development plan? Is that the intent? Okay. With those clarifications.
Further clarification on A, this, I think I asked the last meeting, this is an amount that takes us to bid, right?
Yes, correct.
Assuming no changes.
Yes.
No major changes.
Absolutely. The work will be completed through 2025, and the target is for bid in the first quarter of 2026.
Yes, correct.
Also, just on CA3B, we just need to decide if you do want to have the meeting on June 19th, which is a Thursday, but it's Juneteenth.
In the past, we have found it easier to include potential meetings because it's easier to advertise a cancellation than to advertise, or do I have that backwards?
I'm just wondering, do you want to?
Yeah, we've worked it both ways, to be honest. The issue at hand is it's a regular scheduled meeting night for us. It happens to be a federal holiday. It is not a holiday that is at the moment recognized by College Township. So as it stands, College Township workforce will be in the office on the 19th, but it is a federal holiday. So the question then becomes, does council choose to meet on the 19th, or should we move that meeting either forward or backward to accommodate the federal holiday?
What's the pleasure of council?
I would move the meeting, given that it's a federal holiday, even if we don't recognize it in recognition of that holiday.
All right, why don't we pull that then? And then we'll have a discussion.
Okay, pull it.
Since there seems to be consensus to not accept it as presented.
Mr. Chair, if you would, and just indulge me for one moment, I'm going to ask Lindsay a question. Is there any reason why we need to offer additional clarification with respect to the public hearing that is here?
No, if it's the process in the MPC, council has to schedule a public hearing within so many days of the submission to us of the PRD. So that's why it was on the schedule tonight, and that's why we're requesting it be for December 19th.
Very good.
Thank you. Since we're on that subject, staff has the PRD?
We do, and that's why council got it as well, earlier, around October 22nd or 23rd. The MPC requires us to send it to council as soon as we get it submitted.
So I just since we hadn't actually seen it, it seemed odd that we were taking action to schedule a public hearing, but the timeline is such that we need to.
We did include as part of correspondence, the narrative that was submitted along with the submission to staff earlier.
Exactly. We have all of our staff comments. They'll go out to Pantera tomorrow, and then we'll just move through the process from there.
Okay. So far, I will then ask that we pull CA3B. Anybody else want anything else pulled? And we do have someone here from Crew tonight, is that correct?
Representative, right?
If needed.
Did you attend thinking you might have an opportunity to address council on any of this? Because this is an action item. If we take a motion to accept it, we're not going back to this later on in the meeting. There isn't anything else.
Right. That's correct.
So this would be that opportunity. So at this point, I'll accept a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented minus CA3C.
B.
B.
B. Okay, do I have that motion?
Yes, you do.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, anything you'd like to address us on what we're acting on?
I'm actually good, thank you.
Okay, you're here just in case we weren't going to take that action.
Just in case there were any questions, and, you know, any questions for me or the development team, but I kind of figured it was going to be a streamlined process, so.
Yeah, well, when, at 9 o'clock, the later it gets, the more streamlined it gets. All right, and I think to be fair, there were questions that staff was able to answer. Okay. So all in favor of accepting the consent agenda minus CA3B, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. CA3B. What would be the preference?
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to accept CA3B with the modification to move the June meeting to June 18th.
The month to the day before, right?
Yes.
I'll second the motion.
Have a motion? Do I have a second?
Yep.
Any discussion needed there? I'm on board. Anything staff has to point out about a Monday meeting? Not an issue?
Wednesday.
Oh, Wednesday meeting? Yeah, Wednesday, okay, good. All right, then, all in favor of accepting CA3B, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Entire consent agenda has now been accepted. That moves us into the business part of our agenda. We have two old business items. The first one is OB1 RFQ for our local impact study follow-up. Mike has done I think, a really good job of, or somebody has. I assume it was Mike.
Absolutely. Mike has done a great job with this. I think that after the last review by council, I think that Mike wanted to take an opportunity to make a few tweaks. We thought it was very prudent to bring that back to council for a final blessing, if you will. And he and I have yet to talk specifically, or perhaps I simply failed to remember what we talked about specifically about when we want to try to get this out on the street. But it's going to be soon, pending, of course, council's final review this evening.
November 18th.
Okay.
There you go.
You remember.
Given where we are in the meeting, what I'd like to do with this is give you an opportunity to review the specific changes you made as a result of the comments and direction you got. Offer council an opportunity to comment, question on that, and then we'll circle back to everything and see if anybody has any things that have come up that we didn't discuss last meeting. But let's get through the specific suggested changes first.
Sure. So, yeah, again, before you tonight is what I hope is a accurate representation of the feedback that was received during the discussion on the October 17th meeting. Just kind of walking through those, the cover and throughout the document references the revised dates of issuance, the optional pre-submission meeting, as well as the due date for submission. At this point, I'm proposing an issuance of November 18th a optional pre-submission meeting of Monday, December 16th, and the submittal deadline Friday, January 24th. It's a little bit longer than the original had shown, with recognition of the holidays that pop up there in both November and December. Next section, introduction, there was a discussion about further expanding the definition of comparable and relevant host communities. What I heard from council was areas that have a Category 4 casino, host communities within Pennsylvania, host communities within Pennsylvania with similar or slightly larger scale casinos from different categories, or other peer casino host communities featuring a Big Ten or comparable major university. Under Section 2, project overview, just some tweaking to the sentence on page 2. What's underscored there is originally it did not talk about maximizing potential benefits that could be derived from the casino. Section 3, under scope of work outline on page 3, adding the following line to the end of paragraph 3, these analyses should have specific focus on potential costs, benefits, risks to the host community and surrounding region. Pages 3 through 5, just some reformatting of the numbering system for better understanding and clarity. Page 5, adding analysis of demographic pre and post casino opening should be evaluated. That was something that came forward. So again, much like we talked about earlier, establishing the baseline and then post-construction conditions. And then finally on page 5, change number 3 under recommendations to read develop metrics and measurables. Just adding that line as feedback that came from council. Under Section 4, preferred qualifications and experience, added on page 6, experience with studying brick and mortar casinos under regulatory requirements of the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board is preferred under previous experience, item 1A. And last but not least, under Section 9, revision of the points values. As we talked about, expertise 25, experience 25, approach 20, understanding 20, and quality 10 for a 100-point scale in terms of a review. At this point, what ultimately, as you framed, Mr. Chair, looking for any additional revisions that council may have, anything substantive, we'll bring it back to you at an upcoming meeting. If not, I'm looking for your authorization to advertise as noted.
Okay, let's start with the bullet items where we provided specific direction to Mike on the changes. Are we comfortable with what he's put together for us in that regard?
The only thing I would ask that we consider in looking at it more carefully would be, coming back to your discussion on the point system, is the understanding of community needs and application of local impact report. Just ask for that to be moved to 25 points, so it would give equal weight. And just suggesting for consideration that we take it from the overall expertise, just in the sense that that could be incorporated in the experience and quality of submission. And that would move some of those social impacts up into the same tier of evaluation as the other two.
Rich?
No, I think we hit it. Mike got all the things that we brought forward. There can always be more, but gosh, at some point there needs to be a balance where we're not telling too much. As far as the points, I could definitely consider that.
Yeah, and I was the one who pushed for understanding to get moved from 15 to 20, so you have no argument from me.
Okay.
And I agree. There's a lot of overlap between expertise and understanding. At least we want there to be a lot of overlap there, so the combined total stays the same, but we are more heavily weighting understanding over generic expertise, which I found to be valuable in other RFQs. You know, a lot of experience, but how much of it's relevant and how well do they understand the community?
And we've asked for specifics around the community and the impact, so.
So Mike, so far what we have is a request to just tweak the...
Yep, that's pretty straightforward and well rationalized, so very easy.
Thank you. So circling back to the bigger picture and anything that we may have had second thoughts about or come to our attention since then, we have received a number of correspondences with references and suggestions, and I would offer that, just a reminder that we are doing an RFQ right now, and some of what we have received is relevant. The question is it relevant for the RFQ, or is that information we use then when we sit down and negotiate with, the successful, it's all relevant information. The question is, does any of it need to be weaved into the RFQ as opposed to being used when we negotiate the scope of work with the successful vendor? So you guys have read some of that. Do you see?
Sure, I think, there's obviously two ways you can handle it. We could spell it out very clearly in the RFQ if that is the direction of council, or it could be brought up, as you referenced, during the discussion. As we said going into this, we know what we don't know. And, as we get consultant firms in front of us, particularly the ones that are, those finalists, these are things that I think merit some discussion and may ultimately tease out which one ultimately gets the job as to how they respond, or even if they bring that to the table themselves. That is something that I think I heard loud and clear through the correspondence throughout this whole discussion, is finding a consultant with the right type of expertise, and particularly ones that know kind of intuitively what we're looking for, even if we're not being 100% clear in asking for it. So my personal opinion is I think you could leave it as is and tease that out during the interview process, but that's at your discretion.
Thoughts?
I agree with what Mike's saying. I mean, the information that's been provided has been very helpful in terms of my education on the topic. And so I think whoever is in that discussion will be able to use that as a reference. But I don't think that needs to be pushed forward into the RFQ. I think we need to keep that pretty simple and broad so that more people will apply and look at our RFQ. If we make it too specific, it's really more of an RFP at that point. So
that's the challenge.
But I think it's well balanced, and I think it, we were given the opportunity to really do good work with that. So, and it was very well done. Thank you, Mike.
Rich?
No, I agree. I support Mike's thing. My concern was if you make it too specific, you potentially preclude what would be an otherwise better candidate by accident, potentially by accident. So.
Okay. I agree. As you may have sensed, I like the information. I find that it's very useful. I like having it as arrows in our quiver that we can pull out strategically, whether it's while we're interviewing clients, potential clients, to accurately vet what we need to vet out of them. We've been down this road before, so, or we weave it into the eventual scope of work.
Based on your earlier comment of adding points to understanding, if someone really wants this job, they're doing their research and they'll find that information.
We don't want to give them, we don't want to level the playing field in that regard by offering some information that we would find of value if they came to the table with it.
Yeah, anyone that's following this and like I said, is increasingly interested in it, I would hope that they're looking at this information. And don't forget, we also do have the pre-submission meeting as an opportunity to expound on that as well.
And did you identify that date as November?
It's December 19th for the pre-submission.
All right. Given that some of the suggestions have come from folks in the room and this is a potential action item, I'll actually open the floor to comments prior to entertaining a motion, which is a little bit different. But Andrew, did you have anything you wanted to add before we consider motion?
I do. My name is Andrew Schaefer. As you know, I live in State College Borough. I had three. I think this is very good, and I appreciate the effort that's been put into it. It shows, and I've communicated that to the people in the community who I know are concerned about this. But the three things I would ask that you consider in this final revision would be in section 3.1F. It says the analysis should consider annual operating revenues of the casino for a 10-year period and the potential economic impacts of operations to the township, county, and state in 1 year and at stabilization. And if you parse that, you're really asking two things there. You're asking about the casino's revenue over 10 years, and you're asking about the economic impacts at two different points. And stabilization is not even defined here. If you look at the ESI report, they use stabilization in a sense that I can't understand what they meant. I think they just took a 10-year period and they said it stabilizes at 10 years, even though their trends were still progressing at the end of the period. But I would encourage you to clarify stabilization there, or add in that the economic analysis should be for a period of at least 10 years, just so there's no ambiguity about that. The second thing is in section 3.5A2, you're asking them to evaluate. The evaluation should also look at trends in poverty rates, and I would consider adding to that either in the RFQ or at least as those quivers, the arrows in your quiver, as you said, bankruptcy and foreclosure rates. That information is publicly available. It's very easy to obtain, very easy to get the trend data on that, and I would think any good response should include that as part of the report. And then the last one is section 8 for the optional pre-submission meeting. I would simply request that you either make a recording of that meeting or a transcript, whatever materials are used, available publicly afterwards, both so that consultants who are not able to attend the meeting, maybe they find out about it late, are able to benefit from what was explained there, and also so that the public can see what was presented. And that's all. Thank you.
All right. Working from the last one first, when you have a pre-submission meeting, are there any rules that we are obligated to operate under as far as the suggestion goes?
As far as I know, no.
Generally, the ones I've been involved in, notes are taken.
Right, yeah,
And they are
traditionally.
shared with all potential.
Right, what I have traditionally done when I've done this for other RFPs and RFQs is we have a list of everyone that has expressed an interest, a list of everyone that has received the RFQ document itself. Whether or not they attend, they receive the notes from each of those meetings so that everyone's on a level playing field, and we do publish those as well publicly.
Okay, so we have that covered. As far as the middle item, I don't know, I tend to think that's a detail that we would pick up in the interviews or the scope of work, which I think was acknowledged in the suggestion. It's just adding another category or two. And other thoughts? No. How about the first one?
I would just, Mike, what's your feeling? Modify?
Again, I think it could go either way. If there's a strong preference from council, I'm happy to put it in. If not, it'll be something that we flag as part of the discussions, both in the pre-submission and as we go through the interviews.
Okay.
Okay, and then heading to the first suggestion. Thoughts?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, if I heard that right, it was just basically to change it from a fixed 10 to at least 10.
Right.
Is that, okay. I just wanna make sure I understood.
It's a good point that Andrew raised. There wasn't truly a definition of what stabilization means, and it could mean different things to different facilities. So I don't think it's a bad idea to establish a specific point.
So the question becomes, is that something we weave into the RFQ at this point? It needs to be established.
Yeah, I think I can easily add that, much like changing the points total. That's something we can easily plug in there to just clarify what that means.
Okay. Good. We good with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So we do have a couple of modifications then, moving forward, at least 2.
Yeah, points and that note on stabilization.
Okay. So is there a comfort level with moving this forward, conditioned on those 2 edits?
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing heads nodding yes. So then if that's the case, then we would just need a motion to,
Mr. Chair, I move that we authorize staff to advertise the RFQ as tweaked. I wouldn't say amended.
Modified.
As modified at their earliest opportunity.
I like that. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? We have a motion on the table. Andrew, any comments before we take a vote?
No, I appreciate you accepting our feedback.
Okay, so,
If you also would let me know when it becomes available, advertised.
Yep.
I'll share as well.
anybody online like to address council before we take a vote on this issue?
See, no hands.
No hands. Okay. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay, that's a thumbs up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's okay.
All right, great. So that concludes the first item under old business, and that takes us to our second old business item tonight, OB2, the 2025 police services hours and rate.
As council will recall, we received a presentation from State College Borough Police Chief John Gardner on October 17th. At that time, John conveyed to council what he and I had discussed and what the recommendation is in terms of our overall number of hours per week of police services that we contract with the borough, what those hours would be in 2025. We did not finalize that during the October 17th meeting with Chief Gardner, but that is now back here in front of you this evening. It's my recommendation that we continue with our 265 hours a week as Chief Gardner has also recommended. I think that we have a lot of value for the service that we receive from the borough at that level. And at this point in time, given our crimes data and other police involvement in the municipality, I don't see a need for us to move that beyond the 265 at this point. So that would be the recommendation. There's a suggested motion that was included in the brief agenda memo in your packet.
Questions for the manager?
Not really a question, just a statement. And because I'm pretty much the reason we didn't approve it at the last meeting, but this is a big line item in our budget. And having not reviewed our budget yet, accepting it at that time, I wasn't comfortable with that until staff had an opportunity to review the budget. And I'm assuming by the manager's recommendation that he feels comfortable that this will not need to be a tool to balance the budget.
No, I do not anticipate that. I can tell you that given the preliminary hourly rates that we received, that we're looking at approximately $1.85 million for 2025 in terms of our obligation at 265 hours a week to the State College Police. That is on par. It certainly is an increase, but it is on par with what we have done in the past with police services. So I'm very comfortable with it. We have the ability to, if you will, bake that into the budget. So I see really no issues whatsoever with the dollar amount.
This is why Rich is our finance committee rep.
To be a thorn in the manager's side.
You know, you're right. But what it sounds like is our staff has done a pretty good job at anticipating from year to year what that expense impact is going to be and factoring it into our preliminary budget deliberations. All right, so at this point, the chair will entertain a motion to set the 2025 police service hours at 265 hours per week in accordance with the cost outlined by the State College Borough Police Department Chief John Gardner during council's October 17th council meeting.
So moved.
So seconded.
So second. Any discussion? Comments to council on the anticipated action here? Nobody in the room? Anybody online?
No hands.
All right. So all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? No one opposed. Motion carries unanimously. That concludes old business and takes us into new business. Tonight we have two new business items, the first of which is MB1, the College Township 150th sequential celebration. Potential action item after we hear from the manager on what he's proposing.
Right, so thank you. I want to mention that College Township will in fact celebrate its sesquicentennial, its 150th anniversary next year, November 22nd. We've been around for a while. And in terms of acknowledging the fact that this is a date that's coming, a small group of staff and a former member of council have met on a handful of occasions to talk about the potential for what type of a celebration might we try to pull together. And while we're still very preliminary in those conversations, and there certainly have been no decisions, primarily because we thought it would be a really good idea to talk to council about what you might think of a 150th celebration for our sesquicentennial. And so a couple of things that we have proposed. I think it's pretty obvious that we need to have a committee. And I think that it was certainly the consensus of those of us that have been meeting that it makes a lot of sense to have at least one member of council actively participate in that committee in the planning for this event or series of events, as the case may be, throughout the course of next year, leading up to November 22nd. And the other item is basically, it's kind of a budgetary note here and a request. We've earmarked at this point an amount of $25,000 that we have identified as at least a working number to utilize for, again, either a singular event or a series of events related to the 150th anniversary. At this point in time, the budget is still under development. That has been incorporated into the preliminary document that you'll see here shortly. And I believe that it's should be relatively easy for us to accommodate that amount of money for this type of an event. But again, that's why we're here this evening to discuss this with council, get some feedback from you, and some direction, if you will, both relative to the committee that might be formed or should be formed, as well as the amount of money that we're earmarking for the event. So between Carla and Jen, and I don't know if Carla, you had any remarks that you wish to make in advance of council's discussion, but we will endeavor to answer any questions that you might have to the extent that we have any answers.
So Carla, you've been sitting here for 2.5 hours and you don't have anything you want to say to us? Come on. Welcome back.
Carla Stilson, Puddintown Road. We don't have a whole lot to say yet. Really, we just want to hear your feedback. If you have any ideas, anything that strikes your fancy for this. And then, of course, the budget request and a member of council who would like to be on the committee.
I saw that. Stay there. Stay close. All right. Susan, Rich, suggestions, questions?
I just want to ask Carla, does it bring you back any memories, Eric chairing and just, okay.
Well, what he's really saying is Eric chairing in it, we're 2.5 hours into the meeting, and we're not done.
Susan? We talked a little bit briefly. I like the idea of some event, something like a block party, something that's open to the community, or at least consideration of that. Maybe some sort of, I don't know. I don't know why something like, maybe it's because it's 2.5 hours. Spelling bee, or, some kind of contest for school kids to talk. Yeah, the history bee, or, it's late, I don't know, College Township Jeopardy, I don't know. But something that gets maybe some of the younger people involved in doing something around learning a little more about the township, and gets, younger people engaged.
Yeah. Thanks for volunteering to help. Did you get drafted or volunteer?
Yes.
Okay.
I got drafted
Voluntold.
Yeah, Jen.
Voluntold.
before I knew our committee was going to get smaller.
That's how you win awards.
That's right.
Apparently. No, I think this is great. I appreciate, we got a lot of irons in the fire right now, but this is important. The only thing I would offer is, there's this Facebook page out there called Penns Valley Present, Past and Present. And lately, almost daily, they are posting pictures and stories from a source called The History of College Township. And just within the past couple of weeks, I read how it formed and who were the original, and there's all these neat pictures. Remember the one?
You did show us.
Yeah, so there's a resource out there somewhere exists with some interesting historical information and a lot of really cool pictures.
That's a great, these ideas are great because the sesquicentennial can be an opportunity for us to just connect with the community, connect the community with the local government. I'm like, which side of the desk am I on? Connect the community with the local government without tension, right? This is a positive touch to the community to just educate the new who we are and give the longtime residents a voice and communicate in that way. So I'm really excited for it, and I think if we can really pull it off with a few fun events and have good participation from the community, then all the positive touches that we have go a long way to building that camaraderie and trust with the government.
And we're not putting sidewalks in anywhere during this event, are we?
Could.
So, all right, well, thanks.
Sorry, I support the budget commitment in that. I would also suggest that we have periodic reports under our staff BC, other committee reports from that committee. And then finally, I think we should wait to put a member till our other two members are here so that we can, normally in the military you say, who's not here? Okay, they're there, yeah. But
The other, I appreciate that, and thank you. The other guidance that I guess that I would like to get is, at the moment, we're kind of a self-appointed committee. And I'm kind of assuming that's not necessarily, or maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe that's a good way for this to kind of evolve organically, is if we find people that have an interest in would like to work with us to do this, that we add them to the committee. Many hands make light work, and I think that in order to pull off singular or multiple events, especially if they're going to span some period of time leading up to the 22nd of November next year, we probably need as many as we can get. And so as long as council is comfortable in allowing the small but mighty group that we have here to seek out and to engage and encourage others to join. I don't know that there needs to be necessarily formal appointments, but again, I'm kind of asking that question of council here tonight. I'm not sure how it would work if we identified people, brought them in, and had to have council kind of confirm them. for this type of a scenario.
Seems a little formal for the idea of planning a celebration, and if there are people in the community, particularly in the community, that want to join and be part of that, or local businesses that want to send a representative or something, that, I mean, the broader the representation, I think the committee will know whether that's the right person for where you're headed with whatever you're planning. So, but I don't think you should have to come back to us each time.
Yeah, you have a coordinating committee. I think you've got a core thing. The only one I would say, since Carla was voluntold, we'll tell the manager.
I think I was gonna get sucked in anyway.
Oh, yeah, we're just making it official.
You've got the power.
Okay, that's great.
I do want to add one thing. We have already had a little bit of an expansion of our team in a way, in that I've been in contact with a state high student who's working on the Sesquicentennial Centennial logo. And she's already begun. She's in a marketing ad design class, and she chose this project. So I'm hoping that she'll come to a meeting and present her ideas. So that's the goal.
That's great.
That's perfect.
Yes. So, just I'm saying that Carla goes back to the day when a 2.5-hour meeting was par for the course, so, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, 9:30, getting home.
I got my teeth in these.
We do have a hand up.
All right, Laura, what do you got for us?
She wants to be on the committee.
Since I'm still sticking around, no. Well, I'm on too many committees already, but I just wanted to second the idea of doing something historical, history of the county, or history of what was here before, or not the county, I'm sorry, College Township, what was here before College Township.
I thought you were going to volunteer for the committee.
Well, if you know anyone, Laura, please
Yes.
reach out, let us know. We'll be able to use the help.
My dad has been also sending me the things you have mentioned from that Facebook page, so I'll see if he's interested.
Oh, nice.
Great.
Yeah, I can
Nice.
get Bonnie Henninger's the lady that does that.
Okay, excellent.
Awesome.
Outstanding. All right, well, thank you, Carla, for volunteering. And
Thank you, Jen, for volunteering her.
you were asking for
She said no.
action to approve the expenditure tonight, though, right?
Actually, no,
Consensus.
it's for budget planning purposes. I just wanted to let you know what we were thinking in terms of just some kind of a target number that we would have available to work with. And so the next time you see any numbers, it would be in the draft budget and then be finalized later on as we move forward. And I'm assuming that if we end up with some really great ideas that cost lots of money, we would have to come back, once that number ends up being part of an approved budget. But at this point in time, I think it's sufficient working capital, if you will, to begin to pull things together.
I wrote this, so don't look at it. We're just reading it, right? You're saying you asked for approval, that's because it came from me. The minimum.
All right, so we can move on, right?
Yes.
That concludes MB1, takes us to our second and last new business item of the night. MB2, Parks and Recreation Fogelman Overlook Service Project. Informational update, maybe looking for some feedback, but not necessarily action.
Yeah, this really is not an action item. I had asked Amy to prepare a little summary of an action that was taken by the Parks and Rec Committee. This is describing, the memo describes a joint venture between the Parks and Rec Committee and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and it's to remove some invasive species from an area in, not Winfield Heights, Stearns Crossing, at Fogelman Field, Fogelman Overlook, thank you. And essentially, Parks and Rec has access to funds. Administratively, there is no issue with the expenditure of funds. I just thought it was a good idea for council to be aware that there is going to be a project at Fogelman Overlook, and that U.S. Fish and Wildlife is going to be engaged and involved in there in the event that members of council were contacted by any members in the community about what was going on. So that's really the whole point of this being brought forward tonight, and really it was done at my request, so that you had the information. And if you do have any questions, I'm sure Dave knows lots more about this than I do, and would be very willing to share if need be. So that's the item. As far as I'm concerned, we've accomplished what needed to be accomplished.
Questions for Adam? Rich?
No, I appreciate the background.
I don't either. However, I do want to, I was happy to see, impressed, surprised, impressed, happy to see that Park and Rec or someone was able to leverage at least labor resources from Fish and Wildlife for this. I thought that was pretty impressive. I don't know how that came about, but kudos to whoever made that arrangement, so. Yeah. All right.
Thanks.
Take a bow.
All right, well, surprisingly, that concludes all of our business for tonight, agenda business, and that takes us to staff informatives. Do we have anything that we need to be informed on from staff?
No. I have a question of you later, in a moment,
Of me? Or
of the group.
under other matters?
Yes.
Well, let's jump into other matters then. Let's get that question out there.
So as I've alluded to already on a couple of occasions tonight, we're in the process of developing the 2025 budget. Typically, this meeting, you would have received a budget book. I don't think we're too far away, but we are a little bit delayed. My hope is that by Tuesday of next week, possibly Wednesday of next week, you will actually have a full-blown draft budget book. And we can then begin and continue to schedule workshop meeting. But one of the things that I like to keep in my back pocket is an alternative, okay? In the event that we run into any snags with the development of the budget, we technically could adopt the tentative budget as late as our December 3rd meeting. Should we do that because of the required 20 days advertising notice? That then brings us into the holiday season. But there are still 2 working days in that following week after Christmas, which would be Monday the 30th and Tuesday the 31st. And my question for those of you that are here this evening is, by chance, does anyone know if they are not going to be either physically in town or accessible for, at the most, a 30 to 45 minute meeting, but via Zoom on the 30th or the 31st? Again, I am not anticipating that this is a necessity, but I do like to have my ducks in a row in the event that it should come to that.
How's your schedule look?
I'd be available. I'm here now, and if I'm not, I would be absolutely available by Zoom if I were out of town. That would be a priority.
Great.
Rich?
I got a thing.
What thing?
That's fine.
Same here.
Okay, that's
With the
great.
Zoom option, it leaves open,
Yeah.
you know, the fail-safe.
That's great, thank you very much. It just
So that
helps.
was a potential special meeting. for
And that would
purpose.
be, yeah, in the event that we had to hold
Yep.
it on the 30th and 31st, it would be a special meeting. But again, at this particular juncture, I'm not anticipating that, but I had to ask.
Okay. Any other matters? Going once, going twice? How about a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I got a motion to adjourn. We are adjourned.